I want to welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Grace McComsey, the PI of our CTSC, and you see on the left side all the different health systems and medical schools who are part of our CTSC. So I'm excited actually to have our inaugural speaker for our new series, the Distinguished Speaker. And you'll see that we couldn't have picked a better inaugural speaker for this series. So what we do on the CTSC, we not only have a lot of health system partners, but we do a lot of things from workforce development, and that is for investigators and everybody else who help in the research process. We do a lot of funding opportunities, a lot of training and education. We have a lot of services. We want to grow clinical and translational research. So we're funded by NIH, specifically NCATS, and we're proud to do what we do, and we're really happy to help CASE and our community in Northern Ohio to be more and more innovative and help the health of people in the community. So I'm excited to present to you Dr. Harris, who is an active member of our external advisory committee. Dr. Paul Harris is a professor of biomedical informatics, and he serves as the vice president for Research Informatics at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. He created and is a faculty lead for REDCap. REDCap, who I know all of you know what REDCap is. It has been broadly adopted by more than 7,500 institutional partners and 3 million end users across 159 countries. Talk about an achievement in research. He also created a national recruitment registry, Research Match, which I know a lot of you have used as well. We use it here in our institutions. It matches individuals across the US with research teams recruiting patients for studies and for trials. So awesome way to match study participants or potential participants to the studies that are available. Research Match is serving approximately 120,000 research volunteers and 246 research institutions. Dr. Harris also serves as the corresponding PI for All of Us Data and Research Center housed at Vanderbilt, and also for the NIH NCATS Recruitment Innovation Center. He received a PhD degree in biomedical engineering from Vanderbilt University and has significant experience working in the field of clinical and translational research informatics. He was elected as fellow in the American College of Medical Informatics, the International Academy of Health Sciences, and American Institute for Medical and Biological Engineering. He is also a recipient for the Donald Lindbergh Award for Innovation in Informatics. It's an AMA signature award recognizing innovation in the field of informatics that has dramatically moved or changed the field. So from REDCap to All of Us to Research Match, you can imagine how innovative and impactful Dr. Harris' work has been. So Paul, we're very happy to have you talking today about decentralized trials. So thank you for taking time.
Thanks so much. I'm delighted and honored to be here, especially noting that I'm the inaugural speaker. I'm going to really try not to mess this up for everybody else. So thanks very much. And let me just share my slides. And if you could confirm that you could see a slide.
Yes.
Perfect. And the voice is okay?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, great. So I'm going to start out talking about decentralized trials, but if time permits, I'm going to talk a little bit about REDCap and some of the what's new and what's next features. Some of those are, they all tie loosely to decentralized trials, some more than the other. But if time permits, again, I want to show you some of the cool stuff that we've got in the works right now, because I'm always looking for collaborators to make things better and think about new ideas. I want to start, though, talking specifically around decentralized trials. And with that, I want to talk about the Trial Innovation Network. Then we're going to drop into REDCap and MyCap as platform tools for conducting decentralized trials. And then finally, again, if time permits, the what's new and what's next on the REDCap platform at large. So the first thing I want to do is introduce the Trial Innovation Network. The Trial Innovation Network sits on top of the CTSA network, which is 60 plus hubs across the country, of which you guys are, of course, one. Vanderbilt's one, and most large institutions that receive a lot of NIH funding have competed and are one of these CTSA hub institutions in that CTSA consortium. The Trial Innovation Network is made up of three funded entities with the design purpose of reducing burden, reducing impediments, and going faster, cheaper, faster with specifically multi-site trials. Again, with a specialty area where the CTSA partners are contributors in that network as sites. There are two trial innovation centers. One is housed at Johns Hopkins University. That's the one on the right. And you can see that they have some formal partners working with them. The other one is at Vanderbilt University, and you can see that one on the left, and that one has significant partners as well. And then we've also got Recruitment Innovation Center, which is sort of the circle at the top, and we have partners in that one as well. Consuelo Wilkins and I lead the Recruitment Innovation Center here at Vanderbilt. Gordon Bernard and John Casey lead the Trial Innovation Center. And I kind of work underneath that Trial Innovation Center with innovation, particularly on the technical platforms. But we've been running this network for a number of years. And so we've got a lot of experience, in 7, 8+ years of running this. Basically initial consultations and sometimes resources are available at no cost just for the asking. There's I think I've got another slide. In a slide or two, I'll kind of talk about comprehensive consultations and actually working within, funding part of the Trial Innovation Center if you need help with actual implementation of the trials. But the website for this one with all of the resources that I'll mention in just a moment is trialinnovationnetwork.org, or you can hit that QR code. And you can see, at least at the time that I snapped this screenshot, we had about 415 total proposals submitted over time. As I was mentioning before, the first step of getting in for consideration of your planned multi-site trial for service in the Trial Innovation Network is just submitting a proposal. With that proposal, then everybody gets an initial consultation. That's an area that's sort of a space where we come to the table with a number of experts based on what you have told us you're interested in doing as a prospective multi-site trial. We meet with the PIs and key research coordinators and staff, and just trying to get a handle on things and what we might recommend as either resources or next step actions, or maybe and one of those next steps actions might be a comprehensive consultation, and that's where we really sort of roll up our sleeves and work with an investigator to create a cogent plan, study design, recruitment advice, et cetera, that could then be sort of submitted for funding. And if funding is available either from an existing project or from one of those comprehensive consultations, then we can also provide trial implementation support for teams. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because I want to get down to decentralized trials. But one of the reasons I wanted to mention this was because in 2023, we sort of gathered together the PIs and the key leadership group across the 10, and we sort of compiled some lessons learned on some of the decentralized trials that we had, or hybrid trials that we had supported to date, and pulled some of those lessons learned out and detailed in a JCTS article that you see on the left. Basically, as we sort of compiled lessons learned and challenges, et cetera, common challenges, et cetera, we summarize the benefits of decentralized trials as you see here. Increased accessibility, particularly with geographical participation, or for individuals with mobility issues. That the decentralized or hybrid trials can be a great resource. We can diversify the patient population, again, especially if we're talking about geographical diversity. We'll talk a little bit about other diversity later. Improving the retention rates. I'll give you sort of a case study at the very end of one that we created that I don't think would have necessarily finished, particularly in the era of COVID, but they ended up finishing ahead of time because they converted to a decentralized trial. Cost of efficiency gains can be made, as well as just immediate access to the data collection if we're collecting data real time from participants in patient-reported outcomes. Challenges are regulatory compliance, data security and privacy, technological barriers. Participants may need access to and familiarity with the digital technology. It has to be super, super easy. If we're not going to have someone standing beside them, helping them, with navigation if necessary. Operational complexity. Again, one of the things that we've learned in decentralized trials is it does shift the burden somewhat from the participant to the coordinators, and especially on the monitoring side of things, and standardization. Of course, ensuring consistency, regardless of the populations that we're serving in these trials. Just one or two quotes from that paper. They are uniquely decentralized trials, and again, every time I say decentralized trials, I would also say hybrid trials, where some is decentralized and some is not. They're uniquely positioned to reach a wide range of participants by removing geographic and time constraints associated with study participation. However, the use of technology and home visits, while potentially helping in lessening the participant study burden, may still present challenges for participants who are resource insecure or unaccustomed to using technology independently. And so, as wearing my hat as the Recruitment Innovation Center, I love it from a geographical representation standpoint, but we have to be super, super careful that we don't introduce bias into our trials by assuming too much on the technical side. I've got another slide or two. I think one from the case study that I want to talk about next. But before I leave this slide, I want to also sort of take you back to that Trial Innovation Network website. On that website, we have a number of assets that we've created. And we disseminate through one of the links there, the Trial Innovation Network Toolbox, and you see some of those guideline documents here, and there are many more. The other thing that you'll see on that website is the open webinar session. So it's always we're always trying to look for opportunities to share not only what the Recruitment Innovation Center or the 10 Trial Innovation Centers are doing, but also what CTSA institutions are doing, and we want to share your resources and tools. We want to invite you to webinars as well if you've got some things that you'd like to think about disseminating. But the last slide, as I mentioned, I'll just say, one vignette that we included in that paper that I just mentioned was a successful COVID-19. I'm not sure why I've got a typo there. COVID-19 trial conversion. This one was done here at Vanderbilt, and it was done using a REDCap platform. So I was pretty close to it, and actually one of the co-authors. But this is one where the investigators really hit on a difficult time point of launching this study. COVID-19 started hindering everything, and so instead of just sort of tanking the trial, we converted it into a decentralized trial, and they not only increased diversity of folks from a geographical standpoint, and I think maybe other underrepresented biomedical research categories as well, but also we finished the recruitment well ahead of schedule on this one. So it can be done even under sort of duress type circumstances. So I'm going to switch now to talk about REDCap and MyCap. I'm an engineer, and I love building systems, and I love building service lines, but I really love building technical platforms. And so I want to talk a little bit about REDCap. As mentioned earlier, it's used in a lot of different places. But if you haven't, including your institution, but if you haven't, heard of it, it's a secure software platform that we designed a long time ago, 20 years ago, to basically empower research teams in a self-service way to create, collect, and manage their data for diverse clinical and translational research studies. We started with some very, very rudimentary functionality, and we just kind of keep adding modules over time. It is very highly modular, and there's probably not one study that uses all of the different features and modules of REDCap, but we try to keep it generic so that like a Lego block set, for what you need for your particular study or project, you can configure it the way that you want. We have shared it, as mentioned earlier, with a lot of different other institutions. It's available at no cost to academic, nonprofit, and government organizations. We're just under 7,700 institutions, and we ticked off one more country since I submitted the BioSketch earlier. So we're now at 160 countries. The beautiful thing about that is not dots on the map. The beautiful thing about that is used software gets better. So we have connections to informatics and REDCap administrators across that consortium who are talking to their researchers, and that's how we get the signal back on what's important, what are the gaps, and what should we work on next. Again, one more just sort of fun fact is, we were celebrating, as of last year, we celebrated our 16th year at REDCap Con, which is a national gathering. It started out at Vanderbilt in 2009 with about 40 people. That's one of those shots down in the bottom. And then last year we were in Tampa, Florida, and we had over 500, I think. And that's just the North American conference. We also have international conferences in Australia, New Zealand, Africa, and some of the other places that you can see here. So again, the focus of this talk was decentralized trials, and so I've just tried to pick out some of the features and functions that sort of are those Lego blocks that I mentioned, specifically designed and useful in decentralized trials. So I'll go through a few of those now. So REDCap-based e-consent, this was the luckiest thing ever. We had just finished a grant, or we were in the process of working on a grant, a very small grant with the rats. I can't remember my partners right offhand. UMass and UAB on making it easier for communication to diverse populations about studies and trials, and said, hey, I'd like to participate in that one. And what I can bring to the table is e-consent. So we built that e-consent in 2018, launched it in 2019, and then COVID hit. And everybody needed e-consent, those types of features and functions. And so it just took off like wildfire over the course of the next few years. Last count using our e-consent 1.0 module was about almost 6 million e-consent transactions reported across the REDCap consortium. This past year, I'll go ahead and tell you, if we don't get a chance to get into the what's new and what's next, this last year we took a lot of lessons from a lot of different studies, and we created an e-consent 2.0 module that's much more robust and handles pediatric studies and all kinds of different permutations of consent. We spent a lot of time, again, this is my Recruitment Innovation Center hat, and working with Consuelo Wilkins and the community engagement folks, we realized in these Trial Innovation Network studies that were coming our way that a lot of people were sort of summarily dismissing participants that might speak another language than English. I know that there are a lot of different pieces of that make it hard to conduct studies with individuals with different languages, but what I don't want is the technology to be the problem. And so we spent quite a bit of time with a colleague actually in Germany that helped write a lot of this with us on creating a multi-language representation so that you can use the same survey translate it into multiple languages for the study or trial, and it just really sort of simplifies both the collection and the aggregation and analysis of the results. So so again, I won't spend a lot of time on that, but I think that that's squarely in the decentralized trial space in terms of utility. One thing that that we're really proud of that we created actually back in 2019, 2020, but we just kind of keep evolving it. And that's a project or a module that we call REDCap on Fire, or the Clinical Data Integration Services module officially within REDCap. You can see a paper on that one on the left, but basically it sort of solves the swivel chair problem. If I'm trying to get data from a EHR system into an EDC system, either for a prospective trial or a registry, open two screens, forage around, copy, paste, do the same, repeat. This actually sort of allows us we're using the Firebase technology, so it works in Epic, it works in Cerner. This allows us to actually sort of create a standardized way of sort of mapping data elements from your electronic health record system to your REDCap case report form study or registry, and have that data flow automatically. It can be semi-automatically with adjudication by the researcher, or it can be automatic. If you want to sort of test the adjudication process first and then just let it run. Dr. Alex Chang, one of my collaborators on this, is first author on this paper, and he's really deep into this. Another paper that he published a couple of years ago was just sort of testing it, looking at both. We took a real trial that we had been conducting at Vanderbilt using REDCap, using the old-fashioned way, with coordinators entering data. We cloned that project. We did that EHR mapping, and then we just added the participants that are in the study, and we looked at sort of the comparison of what came in that automated fashion versus what came in by hand entry in that swivel chair mode. What we found in that was the coverage was very good. It's not perfect. You're not going to get every data point that you need in a case report form from your real world data source, the EHR, but it gets a lot of them, and it gets sort of the bulk of them, labs and vital signs, and you can sort of see those numbers on the top right hand side. We also found that there's concordance or high agreement between the EHR data and the coordinator entered data. And in fact, what we found when we looked at the discrepancies, most of the time, I think with the exception of maybe one or just a very few exceptions, most of the time when we saw a discrepancy, it was the human that was wrong. And then finally, of course, we looked at the efficiency gain of timing on that. And just very rough estimates. We estimated that we could save at least 40 hours with of coordinator time with this methodology on a fairly small number of participants. So I think that number is actually conservative, but basically we've kind of shown it worked, and Alex did a fantastic job on this presentation. Just before I forget, because I'm not sure I'm going to hit it later, on the what's next in REDCap, we're actually thinking, and I think this very well aligns with decentralized trials. We're thinking about a participant-mediated exchange of data from the electronic health record into the EDC system. So you can imagine scenarios like, hey, I'm a potential participant, and I would like to be evaluated. I'd like to take your pre-screening survey, and I would also like to donate my electronic health record data from Vanderbilt or from Mayo, or wherever you have had coverage. So that's in the skunkworks phase right now, but it's definitely something that we're looking towards for development and evolution next year. Before I leave that topic, though, we've got REDCap on Fire, or this clinical data integration services, out there to the consortium for some time. We've had really good consortium uptake. It's a little slow because it takes some commitment and governance and security reviews, et cetera, and champions at an institution. But we've got about 70 Epic sites that are either using it or on path to using it, and about 10 or 12 Cerner sites, as you see here. So other things that I'd pull out of my, my tricks for, or my favorite things that support decentralized trials. Really, this one's it's kind of a mixed bag because this is important for every trial. But we have a really robust REDCap shared data instrument library that has sort of about 4,000 instruments I see there on the slide in front of me. So that basically, if you're doing a trial and you've got the Beck depression inventory, and it's already in this library, it's easy to sort of pull it into your specific trial. We've got the PROMIS computer adaptive testing in here. We've got Phoenix. We've got CDisc. Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of different resources here, and they're all just sort of available for free use by our research community. And I think again the overarching message there is it helps standardize as well as makes it just faster and more efficient to launch for your study. Speaking of trials, and again, this one's kind of it's important for decentralized and maybe more important for decentralized because we want to catch errors quickly. But REDCap has a really nice and robust feature set around data quality rules and reporting for automating, things like, multiple choice fields with invalid values, or getting more complex in the study design. Visit one date shouldn't be after the baseline visit date, or should be after the baseline date, et cetera. So that's all sort of customizable by the biostats group that's typically working with a study team. We do have, for sort of formal trials, we do have a data query generation and workflow. And this is something that we've spent a lot of time over the last year and a half. We realized that if we're going to sort of move more into the clinical trials where data are going to be to potentially be submitted to the FDA, we needed to do a better job and a faster job of supporting our research here at Vanderbilt, but by extension, everyone else as well, but by coming up with a way to do rapid validation. So to achieve 21 CFR Part 11 status with our installation. We actually have two installations at Vanderbilt. We have our Everybody installation that has 50,000 studies and projects in it. And then we have this platform called REDCap Central that we've set up just for those specific studies and trials that need to be 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. I mention it here because we've also got a work group within the Informatics Executive Committee, a specific work group designed to support what has become sort of guidelines for doing this implementation at your institution. It's REDCap focused, of course, but I think it's the principles of that are relevant to doing validation on any particular product. We just made Alex Chang again, and one of our staff members, Teresa Baker, just did a big CTSI presentation yesterday, and the first artifact of that, the guideline document, it's a big 50-page document, was released yesterday as well. And if you can't find that and you want it, let me know. Okay, so getting back to decentralized trials and sort of out of the validation framework piece, one of the things that we've got is MyCap, and this is something that we spent a long time developing. We sort of disseminated in a relatively we disseminated it using an external module in REDCap, and I don't want to go into the details of that because they're not particularly relevant here, except to tell the story of MyCap. But external modules are a way that an engineering team or a software development team can actually sort of build customization into REDCap. And we've seen really cool use cases there, like pane drawings, and even at Vanderbilt, we've got one that sort of pushes and pulls information between Epic and REDCap for study enrollment status within the EHR. But in general, they're just a way that, it's an easy way to sort of build against REDCap without going in and hacking up the code, which creates some problems with future versioning for teams. So I mentioned that to say that, I wasn't really sure about this at first. We developed a mobile app for a PCORI grant, and it cost about $30,000-$40,000 to create. It was successful. It was a good project, but I sort of looked at that and realized, yeah, I don't know what this looks like in the future, but I do know that people can't really afford $30,000-$40,000 for a mobile app for their prospective studies. And so we went to school on that one and created, using that external module framework that I mentioned earlier. We just kind of created this no-code application where the authoring platform was in REDCap, and the data once collected and synchronized back to the study team. The data, of course, live in REDCap. We built as an external module. It was pretty successful, and so at some point we realized, we really either need to decide to bake this into the REDCap code, or we're going to need to find some other way to support it, because we were not scaling as well as we needed to. So we decided to go with the former. We decided, we'll sort of bake this directly into REDCap, so that if, any researcher that wants to turn it on if your REDCap administrator wants to turn it on at your institution, then there are tools for setting up an application, again, designed specifically to support the collection of data for prospective studies, where we want to have a lot of interaction with your participant. So this would be sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, where we might just have 2 surveys that get answered over 3 months. In that case, we'll just use some of those other Lego blocks and just use text messaging or email to let them know. This is really decentralized trials type focus, where we want to have an ongoing relationship, and it needs to be pretty, and it needs to be understandable by my mom, who's not a technologist. So things that we can do there are task notifications. It's time to take your medicine, time to do the Stroop test, whatever it is, or a task list. These are the things that we'd like you to pay attention to today. For certain types of data, then we can create sort of longitudinal data visualization tools, like in the middle. It can allow multiple participants per device, and it can also allow multiple studies per participant. One of the nice key features, it's very secure, and so there can be bidirectional messaging with participants. So the participant can ask a question, the coordinator can answer a question, or vice versa. It can hyperlink to web-based resources, and again, going back to that concept of language adaptation, using the Recruitment Innovation Center resources and sort of team to sort of figure out how to get this right. We did launch 17 languages last year, and for that one, we're just kind of going down the frequency of use and use of languages in the U.S. And so it has the ones that you see: German, French, Tagalog, sorry, the Filipino, I think it's Tagalog, but and many others. So those are sort of the features. Again, the when is it a good fit? It's good if it's remote participation, so those decentralized or hybrid trials. If you've got frequent or recurring data collection, it does have some cool features in it, so that if you want to do an active task, some of those features and functions, like a 6-minute walk test, or hold the phone hold your smart device up to your mouth and say those types of tasks that can only be done on a smartphone, can be activated, again, in a no-code way. I mentioned the bidirectional messaging. It's useful for people that have intermittent internet connection, so it doesn't require internet connection to collect data, just to sort of synchronize data once it's collected and you're back in internet range. And then finally, we spent a lot of time in the Recruitment Innovation Center thinking about multiple methods of participant engagement. We spend a lot of time thinking about recruitment. We need to also think about a lot of time around participant engagement, and making sure that our study participants are engaged and wanting to continue and finish trials. So I mentioned these numbers. These are a little bit old, but I do need to get some new numbers here. But this is just the ones we just launched this into REDCap about maybe 2 years ago, maybe 2.5. But you know, as you can see here, we've got tremendous uptake across many different countries at many different institutions. And again, these numbers are sort of old, and we're watching these on a quarterly basis, and it's really getting quite popular. So finally, I see something in the chat window, so I'm going to look at that really quick. Thank you, Grace. I'll wait for I'll build in some time at the end for discussion and questions. But you know, since we have the time, I think I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's new and what's next in REDCap. I'll start again specifically around some of the decentralized trial stuff, but I'm going to end with stuff that could be, you know, more generic. So there we go. So last year was a very busy year. This is my sort of 2004 timeline. You know, if you kind of start and go left to right, we did a lot of the things that I've already just mentioned. You know, we spent a lot of time, and we continue to spend a lot of time on that 21 CFR Part 11 validation. It's a difficult process, and one of the problems is we build these Lego blocks all the time in REDCap. And so you don't want to necessarily validate every month because it's costly and expensive. But so, you know, we recommend validating every 6 months with a sort of feature freeze release that we do, and we try to make that easy with sort of a consortium approach to documenting you know, the features that changed and what needs to be revalidated, and we're working on automated test scripts so to even make that easier. What we found at Vanderbilt is using this rapid validation model that we've created and disseminated to the consortium. You know, we've reduced sort of the time to validation from even more than 6 months to about 3 to 4 weeks, maybe even less. With the current process, with the automated test script stuff, we think we can get it down to well less than a week. So we're making good progress, and again, hopefully the consortium is also benefiting from that because they are contributing to that with help on the documentation. I mentioned the MyCap piece. We've done a lot of different feature pieces into that this past year. E-consent I mentioned earlier. The one I haven't mentioned is just before, I would say around October, we worked within that trial innovation network, particularly with trial innovation centers and some representatives from the CTSA Bird organization, along with a fantastic programmer and you know, REDCap extraordinaire in Australia who did a lot of the coding to create this advanced randomization framework. So REDCap has had randomization in it for a long time, but it was sort of a table-based with sort of rudimentary stratification options. This one really sort of blows it out and allows you to allow some new functionality around adaptive randomization. It employs those external modules, and so if it doesn't have what you want and you have a biostatistician who wants to write a new recipe, then you know it's relatively easy to sort of plug those in. So we're real proud of that. And again, from an evaluation standpoint, it hasn't been out long. But most of the work that we've seen coming out of that in the real world has been in Australia, and I think it is, you know, a game changer. And then the other thing that we worked on, and we almost got out the door in December last year, but it actually bled over the first couple of weeks of January, was our first foray into leveraging generative AI within the REDCap platform. And I think time permits, and so I'm going to show you a demo of that in just a moment. But before I leave this slide, you know, I think, you know, decentralized trials, certainly the MyCap. Yeah, I think if it's a trial, then certainly the validation work is definitely useful for decentralized trials. Of course, e-consent is advanced randomization, yes and no. Or yes, I think for the right trials. And this generative AI, not yet. I mean, not yet, but one of the use cases that we have in mind really marries it well to that language translation, and I think that's going to be, you know, one of those sort of next generation use cases with that generative AI. So let me just kind of give a quick overview of this generative AI module. And it actually launched at Vanderbilt last Saturday. We launched to the consortium maybe a week earlier. but we're just starting to get it launched. We're just starting to measure how people are using it and what they're doing. My approach to getting this into REDCap was to think about the fact that we want to create a minimum viable product to get people in and actually used to it and using it, because there's a little bit of a catch here. You don't want to plug your REDCap instance into my ChatGPT services or Gemini, which we've recently just developed out. You want them to go to your resources, and you don't want to go to the company resources. You want to go to a walled garden there at your institution. And so we know that that's going to take a little bit of time for the REDCap administrators to work through, perhaps. But once you have that connection, and once you sort of have plugged in the right tokens in the right places, then you can turn on the functionality that I'll show you in just a moment. I purposely chose just two little functional pieces that I think actually do some good. And then we released, because I really want to sort of create a working group within the REDCap consortium and start thinking about, okay, now that we've got the infrastructure in place, what are we going to do now that's really innovative? But I think even these two features are pretty cool. And so I want to show them to you today. One of them, I'm just going to switch to demo. And if you could just, somebody confirm verbally that you can see a REDCap screen now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So I'm going to show you on this is a real project that I cloned from my team. We run that REDCap conference every year, and we run every bit of the registration and follow up attendee feedback and what are your food needs, et cetera. We run every bit of that through REDCap, including dashboards for the agenda, et cetera. So this is just a clone of that one. So it has some real data, but it's not sensitive data. So I feel comfortable showing it in a venue like this. So the first thing I'll show you is this is where we are in context in REDCap is creating our data collection instrument. So I could go up here and I could import new things from the instrument library that I mentioned. I could I could create brand new ones and build it from scratch. We're not going to go into that functionality today. I'm just going to go into the view of actually going in and editing what is a feedback survey. So one of the features that we created that can be turned on or left off, by the institution that's adopting this, is anytime we see a WYSIWYG editor, what you see is what you get type editor. We have this new feature that has a little AI wand, and I'll show you that in just a moment. I'm going to show you in one place here, where we're creating or refining a question. But keep in mind that the same functionality can be leveraged for survey invitations or survey thank you messaging, et cetera. Anywhere there is anywhere we're using this WYSIWYG editor. So I'm looking at this question. I can go in and change it to whatever I want. This is standard REDCap functionality. But if I click, hey, I'd like to use the rich text editor, that WYSIWYG editor, you get this little pink button that shows up now if you've got that module enabled. So if I click on that button, it says, okay, here's some options for you. First thing it did was it checked the grammar on the stuff that's in that box above, and evidently that passed pretty well because it's a green light. If I wanted to change the tone and say, I'd like to make it a little bit more friendly. By the way, if it didn't check off with a green light, I could check that button and it would fix my grammar. But you can see, look at the top text, look at the bottom text. I can go in, I'll say, I kind of like that. I'll start with that and keep sort of changing it using these prompts. I could change the reading level. I could change the tone, as I just mentioned. I can make it longer, shorter, or I could create a custom prompt and say, convert this to French. So anything that you can do with a prompt, you can pretty much do to the text that you're creating here. And so I like this one because I call it a helper function. It's so adjudicated by the end user that I'm not scared that the Gen AI is going to hallucinate or anything like that. It may. But we've got a pretty good control here because the the creator is actually sort of searching and doing the adjudication themselves. So that's the first feature that we developed in. And if I say, I'll go down to the bottom and I'll finalize that text. You can sit and play around with it forever if you want, or you can say, hey, tough luck, that didn't work. That's fine too. But if you use it, then it sort of does what you'd expect it to do and sort of adds that text that you just sort of generated. So the other thing is a little more interesting. Particularly, and I think particularly looking forward into qualitative research, being able to sort of summarize data that have been entered into either case report forms or surveys. And for this one, there's a couple of different ways to get to this. I'm going to get to it now using the data exports feature and reporting. You could sort of I'm just going to show you one piece of this, but again, I promise there's another way to get at this when you're sort of creating formal reports. But REDCap for a long time has sort of allowed us to look at univariate sort of univariate views of the data. Here's the educational value from that population, about 80-90%. Whenever it knows the data type and it's a structured field, then it sort of gives you views of the data. But until now, if we were looking at response data, so unstructured data, then there was really nothing there, other than just here's the total and here's what's missing. And you can go to one of those custom reports and you can sort of see those values. With this summarized data piece, I can say something like, it's going to sort of guess that summarize the following in 150 words, but I'll say, can you please extract concepts and order reporting by strength of signal. I can save that so that next time I'm here, it's the same function. It also sort of saves it to that report view that I mentioned. But if I execute the action, takes a second because there's a lot of data there. It's having to go to the generative AI tool and then bring it back. So give me just a second. I haven't tested this one, so hopefully it works. Yeah. So if I look at this. And knowing the conference because I was there and highly participating, I'd say this gets it pretty good. It's not perfect, and we still probably will look through every single one of them, but it's a great thing to sort of just summarize on the go. So those are the two features that we've added in already. But again, as I mentioned earlier, that's sort of an MVP. So I'm really excited about potentially sort of opening that up for other things, and we're starting to think about that right now. I gave a talk to a group at the University of Maryland yesterday to a bunch of biostatisticians, and I got an immediate response by email saying, "Hey, I'm a qualitative researcher, and I'd like to collaborate with you on maybe some of the cool stuff that might be coming next." So again, my thinking is that we are going to probably create a working group. We're going to start thinking about really interesting use cases, maybe even more than the ones that I've shown, and certainly some of those will be decentralized trials focused, particularly in the language translation piece. So where we're heading next is a lot of decentralized trial work. One of the things that I'm excited about that we've been working on for some time here at Vanderbilt is thinking about tying, maybe building an integration in for participant payments to decrease the burden on the researcher community as well as the participants. So we're informally partnered up with a company called Tango and sort of building out a solution there that I hope works at Vanderbilt. Hope it works with my next study, then I hope it works at Vanderbilt. And if it does, then we'll think about disseminating that integration out to the larger consortium. Another thing that I've been spending a lot of time on thinking about these decentralized trials is just participant identity verification, knowing who's on the other side of the screen. So there are some technical ways to do that, and we're exploring those. But we also want to keep in mind that we have to be very sensitive, very careful that we don't choose a platform, an integration, or a methodology that unintentionally biases against populations. And so there's a lot of community engagement work that goes on here, will go on here before we release, in addition to the technical work. And I think, given the interest, in the interest of time, I won't go through the details here, other than to sort of point you to a guidance document that was created and disseminated in September of last year from the FDA, new guidance for conducting clinical trials with decentralized elements. Within a day or two of that, I think I was giving a talk with some FDA representatives, and so I wanted to make sure that we had this covered. So within a day or two, I had my team sort of look at it and think about, what does REDCap do well already? What can it do? You just kind of need to know how to configure those Lego blocks, and what are maybe opportunities. And the one that you're seeing here, we talked about earlier. Basically thinking about that from a data management perspective, inclusive populations perspective, and regulatory and compliance. So it's a great field. It's a great open field for innovation. We're going to try to do the best we can, and again, always looking for collaborators. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions.
So Paul, thank you very much. I'm sure everybody's thinking, wow, there's a lot more to REDCap than I know, and it's amazing how you continue to improve it. So let's cover quickly some questions we have. So Dr. Singer, who's still with us, asked about experience with using decentralized studies for interventional trials in rural communities. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't have direct experience there. I think maybe reading that JCTS paper, we may not have direct experience for a purely decentralized trial in the Trial Innovation Network, but I think that's where you may find some of the hybrid trials that I mentioned earlier.
Somebody's asking, in terms of decentralized trials, are these tools only for NIH-funded trials, or can it be for any studies, even if they're not interventional, but want to recruit from geographically diverse or distant areas? And how do the IRBs deal usually with collection of PROs or clinical data from patients who are not followed by the institution doing the research clinically?
Yeah. So the first question is, can you use these tools for non-NIH studies? I think the answer to that is yes. Most of the work that I do, and most of the work that the Trial Innovation Network does, is NIH funded, but there's nothing, there's nothing that would prohibit you from using the same principles, and even with REDCap, the same platform, as long as you're not, as long as you're using it as to support your own researchers or coordinating center. And then the second one on the IRB, I have a lot of interactions with the IRB, but I don't have direct knowledge that I can share on specific pushback. I haven't heard about it, but that doesn't mean it hasn't happened. So I would sort of defer on that question.
Yeah, I mean, we have in Recover actually kind of similar experience, and the IRB did not push back on that. So I think we can let the IRB deal with that. And there's a question, always compensation of study participants is a big deal. And that's the #1 complaint that we get if there's any kind of error from participants. So somebody asked, it would be nice to see a feature that helps with distribution of stipends by creating a separate list of participants who completed surveys or interviews.
Yeah.
Is there anything you're doing to facilitate compensation?
Yeah, so two things come to mind. One of the things is one of the things that I was surprised about when we started seeing project proposals coming in through the Trial Innovation Network was often how little the research team had thought about the compensation piece. And so the first thing I would say is it's super important and respectful and you know, et cetera. So one of the service lines that we have in that Recruitment Innovation Center is called expert advice. So if you come through the Trial Innovation Center and you just want to think about, you know, what are appropriate amounts for consideration, we can use the research match population under an IRB approved mechanism to just ask specific questions of participant populations, or do community engagement studios. But now I'm going to flip back over to the technical piece. Yeah, the mechanism for that is burdensome, and that's why we're actually sort of working with that company that I mentioned earlier called Tango, which basically is in the gift card distribution business. They don't charge the researcher, they don't charge the participant. You know, they make their money from Starbucks or Target or whoever. We've spent a lot of time sort of building out the technical functionality of that within REDCap, and including the ability to make multiple payments and tracking, et cetera. What we're hung up on right now is my Department of Finance is very, you know, anytime we start sort of getting into the doling out of money, the compliance groups rightfully get very, very concerned. And so we've spent a lot of time over the last 6 to 9 months just sort of getting permission to deploy that for one study. It'll be my study as a friendly. And if that works, then we think we've got the groundwork laid for, you know, multiple studies or even Vanderbilt wide. And if that works, then, you know, again, we'll share that experience and share the technology out with the consortium.
So Paul, there were comments, you know, people interested in MyCap module, and I think as a CTSC, actually, we'll talk to Sherry and see how we can, you know, help with training people and enhancing their knowledge about REDCap. So let me ask you one last question. I don't see anybody. If somebody has a question, I mean, you can raise your hand on Zoom, but dietary intake. So this is an opportunity, you know, I'm an infectious disease doctor, but I love to do nutrition type research.
Yeah.
So one thing that's really hard is getting a good dietary intake history from participants. Is there any thought into having in REDCap, where you do decentralized studies, people whether taking pictures or weighing some food and reporting their intake as it happens?
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, try to recall what I ate last week, for example.
Right. Yeah, early in my career, I worked a little bit in that space, and so I realized the difficulty of getting accurate information. The answer is no and maybe yes. So no, you know, I haven't heard that use case enough to warrant sort of building out, you know, just a new feature set in REDCap to support that. But I wonder, the yes maybe is, I wonder whether, you know, smart people with access to those Lego blocks have already done some of that. You know, I'm sure there's probably dietary intake surveys in that shared library that I mentioned. I don't know what happens, you know, even all over Vanderbilt in terms of who's using it and for what. But my very next thing, if I were going to sort of track that down, Grace, would be either going to Google Scholar and doing a dedicated search for studies that have cited REDCap, or you know, maybe I'm starting to get into some of the AI research tools like Cite. And you know, I would probably go there as well and just open up an AI assistant and say, hey, can you give me a literature search on who's doing that type of work using REDCap? So my guess is that some smart people are doing it already, and usually REDCap especially shares well with REDCap, and so if you found somebody that was using something or doing something that you think would be interesting, it's pretty easy to sort of strip out the data, clone the project, and give it to you for use at your institution.
Good idea. All right, well, thank you, Paul. I can't thank you enough. That was amazing, and the innovation there is great. So it's great to have engineers actually work with physicians. That's great.
Thanks
So
so much.
Mackenzie, do you want to remind people for next on-site, in-person distinguished series?
Sure. So next month it is February 26th, the same time, 12 to 1 p.m. It's with Nadine Raphael, who will be talking about immunology. And this is a hybrid event, so you can join either via Zoom, or it will also be in person in the BRB auditorium here at Case Western.
With lunch, right?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you again, Paul, and thank you everybody for not just joining, but staying beyond 1 o'clock. So thank you very much.